Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for watching the Marine Plant-Based University. And today I have a wonderful guest. So please introduce a little bit about yourself.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Herman. I live in California, and I run a company called Shone Farm, and we wildcraft seaweeds here, native algae from the Sonoma County coast.
Beautiful. So could you please tell me about your company more details, your farming? When did you start your business?
I started in, I think it was 2009, so about 14 years ago. And I live in the county, and it's just north of San Francisco, and it's great soil here. It's great growing climate and a real foodie culture. And so there's a lot of restaurants, and people are really excited. A lot of chefs and excited about food and their source of food and all the adjectives that can go around it. I do have a land-based farm that with soil and with vegetable and cut flowers, but I added on seaweed because it was a hobby of mine and an interest and curiosity. And so I added some onto my farmer's market table, and it was received so well back in 15 years ago. And just so excitement from the vendors and chefs. And personally, I was more excited about it than growing carrots and cilantro. And so now I don't grow vegetables anymore. Actually, I solely do seaweed. And I
Wow.
do some cut flowers. There's kind of a wedding industry here locally in wine country, so that works in this space. But yeah, seaweed has been part of Strong Arm Farm from the beginning. I'm the owner and founder of that business. It's a sole proprietor, so I wear all the hats. And I live close to the coast. Maybe it's like 40 minutes away, so it's accessible. And I myself wanted to learn more about our coast and the food, and just to interact with the coast. I don't surf, and so I wanted to engage more, and had curiosities of all the different life forms that are right here.
Beautiful. So you said that you start your business because of the hobby. What's the hobby is like? But you don't do surfing, right? What's the hobby to start the seaweed?
A hobby? Not so much. Well, okay, I collected hobby just like one day a year for the preceding years. Maybe 10 years before that, I would just go out with friends one day and just to collect enough seaweed for myself, and like, oh, that's interesting. But
Interesting.
and then changing it to a business or something I sell was the shift. And so it went from something I do just for my fun and curiosity to okay, let's add this into my business. Let's sell this. Let's make it a something I become more educated about, and something that I offer to chefs and to my buyers.
Beautiful. So that means you really harvest. You don't harvest. You actually grow the seaweed on the pool, kind of that? Nope.
No, it is just the harvesting. So it's all wild grown algae that grows on our shore here. There's a real abundance here in this county, and in the county just north of us, Mendocino. So it's really thick, and the coastline is slowly declining. So there's a lot of surface area and rocks. So if you go out on those low tide days, you get a lot of access, and there's not many harvesters here. I'm the only one with a commercial license here in this county. So I never see anybody else out there, especially at those hours. It's always right at dawn. And there are a few other companies up in Mendocino, some kind of originators of this wild harvest. So no, I don't farm any. It's actually illegal to farm it in California still. There's some movement getting made on that. But currently it's not legal. So we only have the option to wild harvest.
Okay. And then, so right now you're harvesting. How many like species do you harvest?
About 5. Out of 640 different kinds that are out there. So there's a real plethora of diversity happening. And so it's some very careful identification of what's what out there. and harvesting just those species that are in the culinary trade that the chefs ask for. Those are kombu being the most common one, the most widely used. It's the one
Oh
I
yeah.
use most. So it sells the most. And luckily, that's the one that's most abundant on our coast as well. So it's at every beach space I go to has kombu. So that one is the highest kind of weight that I harvest on that. Also is nori, the wakame, and bladderwrack, also goes by fucus, and a little bit of sea palm. So those are species I harvest with my license, and I'll sell those to chefs.
Oh, I didn't know that individual, seaweed need a license to harvest, or
It's true. Yeah, I need a
oh, I
license
didn't know that.
right from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. It's more of a legal hurdle. It's just a signature and a check. They actually don't give you any guidance so much, and so I wish they actually would give some more guidance where people can how to harvest, kind of little more technique. But with that license, yeah, I can harvest in volume. I can sell it. It's a commercial license. I can also harvest 2,000 pounds a day, which is
Wow, that's a lot.
it's extreme and excessive. And they ask for my like ship number, vessel number, and so no, I don't have that. I always go walk from the shore. I don't have a kayak or boat or scuba gear. It's just like standing in the tide pools.
Wow.
If you go when the tide is receded, you can get access to all those varieties.
Beautiful. And then you sell to the restaurant chef right now?
That's right. Yeah. To explain the process. So in the early morning, I would go harvest it. The tide's usually at its lowest around 6 or 7 a.m. So I assemble a crew of helpers to help me harvest about 150 pounds in a morning is a lot. If that beach allows for it, and if it's in abundance at that site. And so we'll get that amount. I'll bring it inland into a hotter spot that has a big paved area and at lower humidity, and then I'll rinse and dry it there. And then it dries to its kind of finished crisp form in that same day. So it goes from being underwater to being crisp and shelf stable by that afternoon. And then I store it until it comes time to make that sale. And then I have some chef buyers established. I work through distributor, a lot of different methods to get it out into the world. I don't have an online store, but I seem to sell out every year with in the Bay Area. It's the San Francisco is just an hour away, so there's a lot of excellent chefs and restaurants there that tend to buy most of it.
Wow. Like natural grow and then natural use is perfect. It's like, it's a good harmony. So how do you find those, chef with how do you top with those chefs? It came from the word of mouth, or what was your first beginning? You said that you start from the farmers market, right?
Yes. Yeah, so local buyers, but getting to know chefs that bought my produce at the time, and then like, hey, I have seaweed also on the list. They're like, wow, nobody else has this. We have nori on our coast. And so they have started to integrate it more into different cuisines. I like the chef community because they're just so excited about flavor and food and the story, and some have even come and joined me on the harvest to get that whole experience, or they'll send their servers or sous chef out. I really enjoy that because they come with great recipe ideas, of course, but also just have a different outlook, and their life and their mouth is so much about flavor and food, and like what ideas they get when they taste it raw out there, and I could do this. And it's just neat to see the wheels spinning in their head, and just how that brain and kind of excitement works for them. I work with a distributor that handles other vegetable produce down to the San Francisco, the Berkeley, up to Napa County. So That distributor called Feed Sonoma helps me with marketing. But yeah, sometimes the chefs call me, just called a cold turkey. Sometimes I'll be at a restaurant or at a social event and chatting with them and be like, hey, here's my card. Just kind of always be in marketing mode of like, hey, would you be interested in seaweed, or do you want to come out harvesting with me? So it's all angles. Some people find me just online. So I'm kind of open to any
I
method.
love that. I love that. But what is there any headache doing that process? Because sometimes like doing a new business model is there's tons of difficulty, but you seems always fun and excitement, no? But was it any headache during this moment?
Well, it was a 15-year moment. So
Okay, yeah, that's a long history. I'm sorry that you shall not put it in just a short time, but just give me a one, any memorable, something happened on you.
no, there's been bottlenecks and stress points. Sure. I mean, I think that's every business, and there's
Okay.
staffing challenges, yeah, welcome to the small business. So that's universal, but weather is actually a big one. I need to dry it, or I do dry it in the sun. And one day it was drizzling. Like the seaweed is not going to dry in those conditions, of course. And it takes up so much space when you dry them individually on screens. It takes like a whole parking lot of space. And so I can't just pivot that to a dehydrator or an oven to dry it. And so that was a bit of a fiasco. Um,
Especially this year was so tough for you, no? Because there were so many rains this year.
true, there was. The harvesting window for my company is in June and July.
Okay.
So in theory, it should line up with a hot summer, but of course, there's June rains occasionally. It generally is dry here in California for 6 months of the year, so I can comfortably rely on that. But hello exceptions and global changes. So yeah, those drizzly days. And what ends up happening is that the seaweed stays wet too long, longer than I want it to, and so it might need to lay out for a few days or be held in cold storage. Um, and then when it finally does, the sun comes out and I am able to dry it, or I put it in a room with a dehydrator. That's what ended up happening. Um, and a lot of stacked screens. It was a bit chaotic, but a lot of the salts rose to the surface on the seaweed. Totally edible, totally fine. It's just proof of all the minerals and salts in there. But unfortunately, it looks like mold, that white crust. And other
Oh,
growers prefer that. It's a selling point, I think, in some Korean sales of kombu, to have this white, crust on it. It's proof of the minerals. But here in California or the US, our first response is, oh, it looks like mold. So it takes a
oh.
lot of words to describe, like, no, that's just the salts. It's okay. You can literally lick it off, or just wash it off, or don't even bother, just cook with it. So it takes a lot of words. Sometimes I'll donate product that has all that kind of salts on the surface.
I understand. Like that's why our company have a unique technology to make a exact same quality of the seaweed. So if you, especially seaweed, as you know, it's really sensitive elements. If you harvest on a warm day or the cold day, the characteristic gonna be completely different, right? So that's why we focus on that quality issue. But I totally hear you. So I think you talked to so many chefs and foodie people around you. So did you try any, unique recipe by your own seaweed?
I I guess sure. I made, yeah, like kombu broth heavy, or stock, with that marinade in it, heavy soups, or a different seaweed salads with the toasted sesame oil. But I've used
Yum,
another
yum,
seaweed.
yum.
Yeah. So it's really just that oil that makes kind of any of the seaweeds taste delicious. But honestly, I just mix it into kind of what I'm already cooking. Like if it's a lasagna or a chili,
Ooh.
put seaweed into that. And so it's really, that way I generally eat it every day and I can mix it in and make all my food nutrient dense instead of having these specific recipes that I only make certain moments. So I put a little, I powder some nori and put a little shaker next to my cook stove and add that to most all savory dishes. It's just easy to incorporate.
Oh, interesting. So how do you come up with that idea? Because like if you just put it on your daily meal and then you found this work with a lasagna. Because I talk so many, people in this industry, but honestly, I haven't get any idea to combine with the lasagna. How do you came up with that idea?
Well, I honestly, the kombu kind of looks like lasagna noodles and even
Oh,
like undulated edge to it. I'm like, this looks like a lasagna noodle. And so I tried layering like a whole layer of kombu in the middle. That was a little much, to be honest.
yeah.
So I scaled it back a little bit and added some narrow, like slivered bits or a granular form or powdered, yeah, nori mixed into the different layers. And you don't taste it so much, but I know I'm getting so much more nutrients and protein in that dish. And I may substitute out a meat and use this plant-based protein instead. And so that's to me that's a real mission of sorts is to encourage or enable and motivate others to have more of a plant-based protein diet.
Beautiful. So let's like move on to your business topic again. So right now you're currently work with the local vendors or distributors. So for the future plan, what do you want it to do? What do you want it to be?
Yeah, that's working well. Honestly, it is a lot of wholesale, and so as you know, with wholesale, you don't make the highest dollar, but it's just one of my jobs. I do the harvest during the summer months, and I'm faculty at a university here, and so I do that during the school year. And so to me, this is more my like the work of it, collecting all that seaweed and drying it, and then I slowly dole it out the rest of the year. So having wholesale accounts is makes it low maintenance for my business style and what else I have going on in my life. So it's just a call or a text and a delivery to headquarters at one spot or shipping it. So it's kind of low time consuming the rest of the year, and that works well for me and probably most people's lives. Um, and so I guess that's why I choose to not do farmers markets, not do kind of have a brick and mortar or and just I wholesale it to a lot of grocers as well that represent that. And people will call me and I'll do, yeah, email convert, question or inquiries. And I've even occasionally shipped it places, but like to other states, but it's mostly people that used to live in the San Francisco area that enjoyed it and have moved away. As we know, many people were shifting locations during the pandemic, so they miss some of their food diversity in other cities, and so they want stuff mailed in. So I support that. So yeah, how would I change? I think this is going
Perfect
well.
for you. Mhm.
Perfect. What has been added the last maybe 7 years is that I'm offering educational tours. And so I work with another company called Forage SF that they do the organizing and they handle the insurance, and they organize signups to a whole group of maybe 10 to 20 people and I'll take them out as an educational tour. So that happens here on the Sonoma coast, maybe 20 times a year or so, on these low tides, and do educational work around. And the attendees get to take home some seaweed too. So they get really excited to see the seaweed in, how it's grown and how to process it themselves. So it's really empowering for their kind of one day a year to do this kind of fun activity.
Honestly, I wanted to join that activity. I wanted to bring my fans to your farms. Like it's gonna be so beautiful. And then I wanted to eat that right away.
Yeah, we do eat it raw on the coast, and it's people are hesitant. They wait for me to eat it first, and then they see me just gobbling. I'm like, this one's really good. This one's really crunchy, and oh, this one's a little salty, and And so we try them all out. The texture is funny on this one. And so we have words, people just descriptive words. And that's fun because some people just close their eyes and really like focus on what their mouth is experiencing. And I love it. It makes me kind of giggle to see people adults doing something totally new, out of their comfort zone, in this space that's also normally underwater. Like we're all in this weird space and figuring this out and learning
I
together.
love that. I
So
love that. I definitely wanted to join that.
so I do that April to August each year, and so that's going to keep happening. And so that's just to me, that's part of the business is sharing the excitement, getting other people on board, and kind of connecting people to their food. And it's not like building a customer necessarily, because I don't control that part, but just getting folks aware that it's a protein, that it's a local food source, getting them excited, engaged, and empowered. So all of those are really rewarding for me.
Beautiful. I wish I could ask you more question, but there's only one question I can ask right now. So for the last question, please give some comment to the listener, and then also please tell about the positive feedback who wanted to join to the seaweed industry.
I think it's burgeoning and on the cusp of a lot of potential. There's even the people that work with textiles that come on these tours and they handle it, and just seeing and they check the stretchability and I'm gonna see what happens when it dries, and just the ideas people have, because it's such a new and substance kind of to work with, and it is promising in that it is so regenerative. It can regrow so quickly, and every time it regrows, it's consuming more carbon. So it's really sequestering a lot of carbon from the atmosphere and from the oceans. And so that's pretty exciting. And so it really does have a global plus in that regard. I think farming it needs to happen. I mean, there's just a limited amount naturally of what's naturally occurring. So creating more surface area and increasing kind of farmed sources is wise. But yeah, I think all our different skill sets that would go into this, if you've got the engineering mind or a textile mind or culinary or plastics, I think all those different brains and skill sets can really just getting it in your hands and kind of practicing and trying. I think it is pretty exciting how dense it is, and in proteins, and just its malleability and its unique constituents, and how that can be applied to each of these different kind of professions and disciplines. I'm really curious, but it's opened a lot of doors for me, and I think it can do that in a lot of different industries. You bet.
For sure. All right, thank you so much for the time, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.